Etherfields is a card-driven, story-driven, cooperative and solo-friendly game in which the players will control dreamers, mysterious individuals that are navigating a strange, surreal world and trying to figure out, well, what happens. It's scenario-based and it has, again, a very strong narrative element, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail because it's very important that I preserve the surprise for you, that I avoid spoilers. The game came out in 2020, and I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't heard of it until recently. That's a good problem to have with so many new games coming out all the time. But now there's a 2.0 version, and I tried that one. I didn't play the full campaign. I played, I believe, maybe 12 scenarios or so. And so I think I still have some ideas that I can share with you in this video. Now, the game comes with this large board, and I cannot believe that this is the 2.0 because it's very poorly organized. I would expect that by now the producers had the chance of maybe fixing it from the first edition. Why is this poorly organized? Well, the general structure of the game is that you're gonna have cards here representing the dream world. Think of it as the open world, and your party will be moving from location to location, triggering two kinds of scenario. A short scenario called the slumber, and the main scenario is called the dreams. We'll talk about those. But then up there, when you enter a dream, for example, you will use cards to create the main scenario. But as you saw from when the camera was up there, it's pretty far. I have long arms and I'm struggling to reach all the way up there. They put the tactical map on top there. And you will have cards here representing different locations with a lot of tiny icons, important tiny text. There is even an escape room element in that you would really want to look at the tiny details to discover all the hidden meanings. And again, so to show you, this is where I'm sitting. Now the camera is next to my face. It's all the way there. So your choice is to sit where I am and lean across the table and try to see those tiny details, or sit on the other side of the table and then you're looking at the map upside down. But wait, there is good news, if that's the right word, which is the board is actually completely irrelevant. You don't need it. As you can see, part of the board is used to organize cards, decks of cards, and you can place them on the table. There is a track here. You can use tokens to keep track of that. And these two displays, again, you can put them on the table because the cards will tell you, well, you need to place card B1 and B2 and C2. As long as you know that B2 is next to B1 and B2 is on top of C2, which is pretty intuitive, you can just remake your own grid. And if you think that the image on the background has some sort of hidden meaning, you can always reference it. So I played the game on the table with the tactical and the open world display next to me with the board on the side as a reference. We're gonna use, well, the game comes with very nice miniatures. I'm gonna show you some of them because they look really neat, but you're not gonna use them much because they'll be on the table only when a scenario calls for it. So most of the time these miniatures will be sitting in the box, including this particularly majestic and glorious one. You will have your own character. I played the game Solitaire and I played it as the gambler. This is the character of the gambler. And so you're gonna have the miniature that will go on the tactical display. Each character has a personal board, no, a two-way standard board and an advanced board. Completely unnecessary because it's just to keep track of, this is where I place these tokens and this is where I place these tokens. And I place my deck on the side, the discard pile on the other, the face-up progress cards there. Or I place those elements on the table. Again, not necessary. Now, a couple of other concepts. As I said, you're gonna move on the main world. To avoid spoilers, I'm gonna show you not the actual cards, but the images that you see on the rulebook. This way, well, the stuff that you will see when you read the rules. So the Dream World map is made of tiles. In particular, there are two kinds of like cards. A large square card called the tile, which again represents different sections of the dream world or the tactical display, and then cards proper. They have the shape and size of cards and they represent different things. Each character comes with a unique deck of cards that I really like the idea. They even have effects on the back of the card. So I'll have my hand of cards, and then I can also use the effect that is visible here. Now, during the game, you can build your deck, so you can add cards here which are not specific. Interesting enough, so the more you build up your character with more powerful cards, the less often will be the effect on the back of the card visible, because there may be generic cards covering it. And the cards will produce different kind of resources and or different effects here at the bottom. There's also a cost here that indicates how much you need to pay if you're buying that kind of card from the deck. The art is really gorgeous, no doubt. And these really are the heart of the game. So you will have your party marker that will be on this kind of tile. There you go. It will be on this kind of tile, and you will move it, following those links. Different links may have different effects, and you will trigger different things depending on the location where you land. From there, we can move there. Now we gotta draw a card, maybe move somewhere else. Now we resolve an event, and so on and so forth. As you move on this map, you will collect resources, face events, and then again you will trigger either slumbers or dreams. Now, the slumbers feel a lot more grindy, meaning they tend to be more similar to one another, they're shorter, and really, they're just not as interesting as the dreams, which are more complex and are the real heart of the game. I talked to a friend who played the first edition, and he said that this group didn't quite like the slumbers too much, and so they house ruled a rule in which they simply came up with the effects. They modified their pool of resources based on what they think the slumber would cause them. They went to the effect instead of going through all the steps, so they could play the dreams one after the other. I guess my friend is not the only one who felt that way, because in the 2.0 edition, there is a continuous dream mode that includes this tile and these cards, which again does precisely that. When you would resolve a slumber, instead you follow this procedure and you will have the effects of what a slumber would do. You also walk down the mystery path, and I don't want to tell you what that does, but there's some, well, it unlocks a pretty fun, interesting game option. And I tried a couple of slumbers just so I could report it to you in my video, and as soon as I tried maybe 3, and then I started playing with the continuous dream mode, which I much prefer, because again, the dreams are just a lot more fun. The dreams, again, the main scenarios will take place on tiles, on dreamscape tiles that may look something like this. With different. No, this is not. Nope. That was the entity tile. There you go. That's what it looks like. It will look like one of those tiles. So with 4 different squares that you can move onto some maybe walls with different, you can see the tiny icons such as, the label, so you know where it goes in the grid, and possibly other conditions like whether there's light or not, and things that you can do there. And maybe it says go there and spend 4 of a certain resource, and by doing so you will unlock a narrative, a script. There's a book of scripts which I'm not gonna show you, but it looks like this. There are numbered entries, and so you'll just go to the corresponding numbered entries. When a tile says, for example, come here and spend 6 of a resource, then go and read script 208. You go there, read the script, follow the narrative, possibly make some choose your own adventure kind of decisions, possibly start a fight, possibly start different things. Who knows? Again, the different things. In a turn, first the players will take actions by spending cards. The Flow of the turn is completely freeform, meaning players can take action at the same time in any order if you're playing multiplayer. As I'm playing with one character solo, as that's how he played it, that's not super important. But in any case, now the gameplay is free flow, and so players spend a card. Maybe I spend a card to move 1, 2, 3 spaces, then I spend a card to perform another action, to attack somebody, and so on and so forth. In general, the cards again will have a resource here and an action there at the bottom, which may be for free, or you may have to pay a cost. So move, attack, unlock a script, read what happens, make a decision, and so on and so forth. Each scenario changes, so there's great variety there. It's pointless for me to try to tell you what the general idea is, other than to say, play cards and do things. And you have here a player aid that gives you a sense of what playing cards and doing things means. So, for example, spend that resource to move, that one to assault or to contact. You can also lose hours, which is a limited resource, to move extra spaces. You can peek at a card from a deck. You can gain shining gems that can be traded for advantages. You can use a shining gem to reroll. And yes, you have a custom die here. Sometimes you're just a little short. I need a couple more of a certain resource. Then you roll the die and you hope that you get one of the dots, in which case you gain extra resources. Otherwise, there are other effects. And the action that you're taking will tell you what kind of effects the symbols correspond to. So different things that you can do, again, in very different ways and directions. And once players are done with their turn, then the game takes a turn. There are these turn cards that have symbols that may apply to different effects of the scenario. And then you simply do what the card says, meaning that each scenario will have a card that tells you what the morphing corresponds to, what the basic effect is, what the special effect is, and how the enemies move. In this case, for example, I would roll the die, apply the result based on the card of the scenario that tells me what the enemies do when they move, and then I'll look at the card and see what for that scenario the special effect is, and we'll do that. Next turn, maybe I will roll the die, resolve the movement of the enemies, and then resolve the basic and the morphing effect of that scenario in that order, and so on and so forth. The loot effect will apply only when you can loot, when the situation tells you that you can apply the loot effect. So generally speaking, this is the idea. That you will travel on the open world map, then unlock specific scenarios, dreams and or slumbers if you're using those, and you continue like this, scenario after scenario. You're trying to complete the objective of the scenario before a party member takes too much stress, represented by these tokens. Then that party member is eliminated and the entire group loses. Also remember, card-driven and deck building, when there are several effects that will allow you to lock cards. So instead of going in your discard pile, they go in a separate lock stack, and they stay there until there are events that allow you to unlock them. And when your deck is empty and you want to pick it up and reshuffle it, there are penalties to pay, such as locking cards. Another way in which you may lose if you don't have enough cards left in your deck because they've been eliminated and or locked by various effects. This is the general structure, the overall flow of Etherfields. You know those dreams where you see somebody, but the person has a different name from the one that you know, and he's driving your car, and you're in a different town from where you expect to be. All these bits and pieces of your memories are smushed together. This game feels a little bit like this, mechanically, and maybe that's the intent, to give you a mechanical equivalent of the weird combinations that you find in dreams. Because there's so much stuff. It's card-driven, it's paragraph-based, the map is modular, it's scenario-driven, hand management, deck building, you name it, escape rooms, and there are more rules and more things that will emerge over time. You have even like a one of those plastic dividers that I use to collect cards, and those cards will emerge from the box and will give you different rules, so you will have your player right there for the different rules that emerge. So it becomes even more complex, and some may say fiddlier as it goes by. Mechanically, when I read the rulebook, I was super excited because I was like, wow, this is, you got the deck building, you got the hand management, you decide when you want to seal cards, unseal them, create the synergies. You can even roll dice and push your luck. One more mechanic, if your hand is not good enough. It looked like you could really play with your deck and with your hand a lot, which you could potentially, but all of this space of decision is actually narrowed by the fact that your objectives at any given time in the story are going to be very well defined and specific. I need to move there and assault that enemy. I need to move there and contact that space. So I need that resource and that resource. And that's it. My hand could do a lot of different things, but I need to do something specific. So in truth, the objectives at any given time are fairly well defined. Which means there is a mental script that I found myself going through. I need to do that thing. I have the resources in my hand. I'm going to do it. If not, well, maybe I can use an effect which is less efficient, but I'm still going to do it. If that doesn't work, but I'm kind of close, I'll roll the die and see if that works. If not, I'll build my hand for next turn, hoping that that works next turn. Because that's it. There's a time where I need to go to that spot or I die. There's a time where I know I need to do that thing or I cannot continue in the scenario. So there's a weird discrepancy there between all the things that you could do and the very scripted nature of what you must do at any given time. And then I started thinking, well, Seventh Continent also had the idea that you're exploring a world that is created by tiles representing scenarios, and the game system is narrower because of the story-driven, scripted nature of the experience. So I almost thought that, to me, the story element, the exploration element are the heart of this game, and I thought that you could have them with a leaner game engine behind. That wouldn't be much of a problem. The slumbers, I didn't enjoy them too much, precisely because, actually, I want to point this out, I did enjoy the exploration element very much. Reaching a new magical, surreal place with different atmospheres, very different kind of scenarios. The map works in different way. You can interact with it in different ways, unlock it. Maybe some areas even have tiles that move and you do different things with them. The joy of exploration, the joy of the narrative were actually considerable. No doubt. They may or may not appeal to everybody because it is a non-traditional story, of course. It isn't this world of dreams, and so things are not always going to be clear. The plot is going to feel blurry and a bit messy. But if you're in the right spirit, that is the kind of atmosphere that you're looking for, then this game works very well. I did enjoy exploring the strange, mysterious world. I wish that mechanically it had been done in a way that was leaner and more straightforward, and so that works that way. Again, the slumbers, not so much, but going to a new place, seeing how this new reality works, interacting with that space, with those characters, or reading those scripts, that part I enjoyed very much. So to me, this feels like a story-driven experience with a somewhat messy and maybe overgrown mechanical engine around it. The production looks very pretty, but also feels a bit overproduced from the large map that you don't need. And if you do use it, it's not very efficient. From those miniatures, a lot of you will have a lot of fun painting them to excruciating levels, so detail and beauty, and then you keep them in the box the whole time, and so they don't feel very integrated within the story all that much. And so I have a little bit of mixed feelings here. The campaign is very long, which of course is going to be a plus for you. If you love the idea, you're going to explore it very much. But personally, after playing, a little over 10 scenarios, I believe, I feel like I want to also try something else. How far we went from 2011 when Risk Legacy came out and people were shocked, like, oh my gosh, a game I can only explore for 15 times. That's ridiculous. But now that the cult of the new has consumed us, that our patterns of consumption have changed, very often we need to make an effort to play a game for more than 10, 15 times because there are so many good new games that come out, so many different experiences we want to have. And so that's the idea. And several of my friends independently told me the same thing. Like, after I play a game for 10, 15 times, I wish that the campaign ended there and then I would start a new campaign somewhere else. On the plus side, again, you can play this one for just create your own mini campaign, those 10, 15, and then move on to something else, and then you can go back and play more scenarios in this game. So generally speaking, it's a large campaign that's demanding if you want to explore it all, but you can also explore it in chunks and installments, create your own season 1 and season 2. In sum, this is a game that I enjoyed for the story, not quite as much for its mechanical elements and for its production.